Hey, good evening, folks. Welcome to Taproot. I'm Todd Williams, and I'm joined by my cohort. Say your name.
Marshall Wilson.
Thank you for the record. Very
Marshall
good.
Wilson. For the
And
record,
yes,
my full name.
that's right. And we are here in what is this? This is the 15th of January, 2025. And
5 more days.
5 more days until Mr. Trump takes office. And we've had lots of crazy things going on. Maybe not as crazy as I thought it could be, and of course we're not there yet, so who knows. Um, but I must apologize. I have been out of town for training this week, and so and that went well. And I'm back. Kind of learned about a new product, um, and maybe we'll talk more about that at a later date. But just to fill everyone in, I think it's nice if Marshall and I can kind of, and he may tell you about. I think he has a visitor that he could tell our audience about. But it's nice to make it a little more personalized and let you know what goes on in our life from time to time. Anyway, um, so that's it. I was in training out of town, got back today, and snuck in time to get here to do the podcast. Marshall, what's been going on in your world?
Well, had kids coming in from out of town for Christmas, and fortunately, our good friend Teodora, who lives in Peru. I used to live in Peru, as you know. I was a missionary in the Peruvian Amazon. Started churches in the jungle and lived in the town of Iquitos. And while I was living there, managed to adopt twins. I went down there with seven. Well, I actually went down there with six, had another one, and was not really, expecting to end up with any more kids. But uh, we were in a situation where we were able to help a lady out, and ended up adopting her twins. And we love them to death, of course. But Teo took care of the twins for us for 11 years. After I had to come back to the States, my first wife left me, and I was sitting in the jungle with a bunch of kids, and couldn't be a missionary anymore, and had to figure out what I was going to do to feed the kids. So I had to come back to the States. And unfortunately, the twins had not received permission to enter the United States or even leave Peru yet. So we were kind of in a pickle.
Yeah.
And
What a crazy
Teo stepped up.
process.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's not a process. That's the whole
What?
problem.
What? Right.
Yeah. So, this is part of my fascination with border operations is that, my personal experience is I spent 12 years trying to bring my own personal children home. And then I see the other stuff that's going on. And, I don't mean to make a big deal out of it. I've never been a guy who trades on my military experience and, has to constantly throw it in your face. But, Julie and I are both retired career military officers. We both held, well, she held, I think, a secret, and I held a TSSCI. You'd figure that 11 years would be way more than enough for them to figure out that it would be okay for us to bring our kids home. And we were actually denied visas for the kids 3 times. And then once we appealed the denial, and they denied that. And then one day out of the blue, they just sent us a letter that said, based on your recent court action, your visas have been granted. Now, the funny thing is, there was no court action. We didn't know what they were talking about, but we went ahead and took the visas and brought the kids home. So Teo was a friend of mine. She was an Old Testament professor and a very sweet lady. She knew all the gringo missionaries in town and had a much better relationship with them than I did because, I'm kind of hard to be around sometimes. And I went to her and I said, hey, look, I know you have other things to do. You are doing important missionary work. You're training people. You're teaching profound truths about the Bible and about God. And I need help. I have to go back to the States. I don't have any choice. And I can't take the kids with me. I can't stay here. They can't leave. I said, I'll be back in 6 months to get my kids and take them home. And 11 years later, I finally took them home. And every one of those 11 years, except the 1 year that I was in Iraq with the Army, I would spend 4 to 6 months in Peru with the kids. And, Julie and I got married when I got home from Iraq. And here we are trying to establish a home and get our family together and, sort of chart our course forward. And I'm going and spending 4 to 6 months each of those years in Peru. So it was something. It was something. But those two women, Teo and Julie, my wife, they saved me and saved the kids. So Teo's here visiting now, and we've been having a great time. It's a lot of fun. She doesn't speak much English, and Julie is working on her Spanish. So it's last night they decided to get together and make my favorite dish from Peru. It's called patarasca con tacacho. And the two of them got together. It was really one of the sweetest moments of my life to just watch these two amazing women in our kitchen preparing this dish together and speaking Spanglish.
Spanglish.
No, it was great. It was really amazing. And I would come in and offer to help, and they're like, "No, we don't want your help." I said, "No, I don't want to cook. Nobody wants me to cook, but I can translate." And they're like, "Nah, get out of the kitchen. We got this." It was amazing.
Yeah.
One of the best moments of my life. And fortunately, Teo is going to be able to stay long enough to be here for the twins' graduation from high school, and then also for my daughter Gwyneth's wedding. Gwyneth is number 7, 7th child, 5th daughter, and she'll be getting married in June. So we're really excited about that. But
That's awesome.
That story, of course, gives you all the context you need to understand my fascination with border operations. Of course, I'm also a retired infantry officer. So for me, physical security is always job one. You've always got to have your perimeter tight with interlocking sectors of fire. And, you need to know what's out there. You need to know where your dead space is. And we just have no freaking clue what our perimeter looks like. We've got big old holes in it and aren't even trying to close them. And it always amazed me that when I was trying to get my kids here, part of the argument that was used to tell me that, my kids were not very high priority was the Dreamers, the DACA. You know what I'm talking about? The Dreamer Act.
Sure.
Okay. Well, those people were given top priority, and my children, who I had taken every legal step, I'd done everything exactly right, done all the paperwork, and all I wanted to do was bring my kids home. My kids were I was literally told by the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service office in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that my kids were bottom of the list, lowest priority. And they couldn't tell me why. They just told me that the Dreamers were top of the list, and that they just didn't have time to even think about my kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a vested interest in the border and straightening it out. But anyway, thanks for asking. I've been watching what's going on with the confirmation hearings, and I'm very happy with Mr. Hegseth's performance. You and I have talked about him a lot. He's the SecDef, Secretary of Defense nominee. We've discussed our concerns as well. But frankly, I read his book, The War on Warriors. I think I've got it sitting here somewhere.
So, Marshall, have you ever been blackout drunk?
Have I ever been blackout drunk?
No, I'm being funny because that's one of the questions.
I know that's one of the things they asked him. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and I thought it was funny because he turned it back around and said, "Well, have you?"
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's actually what fascinated me was Mr. Trump's nominees aren't taking any crap. It's awesome. It's really a fascinating thing to see them because as you know, I served in the Capitol in West Virginia. And everybody was always so solicitative of the legislators' goodwill, and especially of the governors. And I thought, do you know these people? Do you actually know who you're begging and bowing and scraping before? Because if you met this guy on the street and he expected you to behave that way to him, you would laugh at him and push him over into the gutter. You would never behave that way before these people. And watching Miss Bondi and Mr. Hegseth stand up and just say, well, actually, we're sitting down. Just answer these questions straight out, look them dead in the eye and say, look, let me explain this to you. A plus B equals C. Here's your answer. And Miss Bondi, with her response, what was it, Kleinsmith? Her statement on the lawyer, the bad DOJ lawyer, Kleinsmith, I believe it was.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and she just flat out said, "Oh yes, absolutely. We're going to investigate the investigators. We're going to prosecute the prosecutors, the bad ones. We're not hunting anybody. We are trying to make sure that we're actually doing the job according to the Constitution and according to our charter." And of course, the senators kept pushing and trying to get her to say, "Yeah, we're on a witch hunt. We're going to make everybody who damaged Mr. Trump. We're going to make them pay." And she just said flat out, "Look, we're simply going to make sure everybody's doing their job right. And when they don't, they will be investigated. And when it's criminal, they will be prosecuted." And they're like, "Well, what are you talking about?" She said, "Well, let me give you an example. There's this guy Kleinsmith in the DOJ. He actually falsified FISA warrants." Now, you've got to understand this whole FISA concept. FISA is all about a secret court, which is supposed to be, it's an intelligence court, foreign intelligence. And the idea is that this is so dangerous that we cannot possibly make these documents public because it will damage the national security of the United States. And right. The joker's making stuff up, making it up and writing it on the warrant. And she says that there's an example of a bad lawyer that we might need to prosecute. And I almost jumped out of my chair, but just hearing my government employees or prospective government employees speaking this way, there's this old song, "My soul wells up with hallelujah." I just about jumped out of my chair and started dancing the jigger. And I can't dance, Todd. You know me well enough to know that. So I almost started dancing the jigger around the living room, which would have scared the dogs and the cats and everything. But this is exciting if they really intend to do these things. And I have no reason to think they don't. But I've heard wonderful promises from political agents before. But the way these people are talking, yes, this is what we need. We don't need a SecDef who's going to play patty cake with a bunch of politicians. We need a SecDef who's going to make war. And that's all he's concerned about, is the effectiveness of the United States military at actually winning wars. That's all that matters.
Lethality.
If they tomorrow decide that short, obnoxious Irish guys with a weird sense of humor are detrimental to the capabilities of the U.S. military to fight and win wars, I'll say, maybe I don't belong in the military. Now, I'd be unhappy about it. I would try to do something about it, maybe fix my sense of humor or whatever. But the thing is, all that matters in the military is your capability to fight and win wars. That's it. It's the only reason it exists. All these other silly games, they need to end. I retired in 2019. And one of the things that really set my mind into the groove of thinking about, well, maybe it's getting to be time to retire, even though I was up for lieutenant colonel. Somebody came and had a fit at me. She was the brigade EO officer, the equal opportunity officer, came in and threw I called them commissars. But anyway, she came into my office and I was the operations guy. And she came in and started yelling at me and said, you got to understand, you just can't put this quote at the bottom of your email. I said, well, everybody's got inspirational quotes at the bottoms of their emails. She said, yeah, but you can't use this one. Mine was, "Blessed be the Lord my God who trains my hands for combat and my fingers for war." Straight out of the Bible, Book of Psalms. And she said, you can't use this. I said, well, what if I use a different verse, like Jesus wept, or, love, in this we know what love is. Christ died for us. She says, well, all those are fine. I said, but saying that God gives me the capacity to make war straight out of the Bible, that's a problem for you? She said, yes, it is. Some people are upset about it. I said, well, can you name these people for me so I can go have a talk with them? She said, no, I can't do that. I said, okay. She was a chief warrant officer. I said, okay, chief, here's what I believe. I believe you are upset about it because you don't believe what I believe, and it hurts your feelings, and we're just going to have to let it stand, and you're just going to have to ignore it if it bothers you so much. And that was the day that all of a sudden this little light went on in the back of my head and said, it might be time for me to start looking for the exit because, I'm not sure I belong in this organization anymore.
Yeah. Trying to remember what movie that was from where he talked about his career dissipation light. He said, "You see that little light flashing in the corner of your eye? That's your career dissipation light." And it just went into overdrive.
Yeah, but I think I belong on this team. I wish that I were young enough to go back in and pick up where I left off and get after it. But I'm 55 and a little beat up, and But I tell you what, they called me up tomorrow and said, "Hey, we want to reinstate you as a major, and if you want, you can earn your lieutenant colonel, and we're going to use you to do great stuff." I'd be like, "Let's do it. Let's make it happen." But I'm
Absolutely.
not sure that's going to happen. I am pretty old and beat up. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I love
Well,
the way that the new nominees for appointment by Mr. Trump are actually responding. They're straightforward, not pulling any punches, not going off on some little nattering spell where they're just trying to defend their own personal interest or whatever. They're just simply straight up saying, "Look, we're going to get the job done.
Right.
We're going to get the job done," and that's all there is to it. And this stuff about Hegspeth saying that he doesn't want women in combat, and I like the way that he shifted. If you remember, this is actually what I said when he first made these when he first made these comments, and everybody lost their minds about it. I said it shouldn't be about gender or sex. It should be, here is the standard. Meet the flipping standard or go find something else to do.
That's right.
This is the standard to be an infantryman. You have to throw a 90-pound rucksack on your back, pick up a 23-pound machine gun, and make it happen. And if you can't do that, God help you or God love you. We're grateful that you tried. But you know what? We really need some guys over here who can do this stuff. We need some wrench turners. We need some bomb droppers. We need everything else, but you don't belong in the infantry. And that's
100%.
okay. Most people don't belong in the infantry, I certainly at this point in my life don't belong back in the infantry. I can't throw a 90-pound ruck on my sack and run up on my back and run up a mountain. There was a time when I could, and I worked hard at it.
Yep.
So it's not about male or female. It's about, can you do the job? Here are the standards. No, you don't get different standards.
No.
You have to be able to pick up a 190-pound man and drag him out of harm's way because he is your brother and he's depending on you. Now, if you happen to be a woman and you happen to be able to do that, more power to you. That's freaking awesome. Now, most men can't do that. If there are some women who can do it, that's fantastic. I'll go to war with them. Of course, they probably don't want to go to war with me because, like I said, I'm old and beat up. But anyway, you get the idea. It's about the standard. Combat standards don't change because you're a girl or because you're, a short, ugly Irishman. They are what they are. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Todd.
No, and there has to be one standard. It doesn't matter what it is. And in this case, we're talking physicality. And it's just a fact of life. I mean, are there women who are very physical and capable of doing amazing things strength-wise? Sure. But is that common? No. No, it's not near as common as it is for males.
Right. And
then when you look at and I was hearing him talk about this, and I think it was Hegseth maybe that was saying it or someone else, the statistics. Women who make it through basic training and then they go on and they're, humping a ruck on a regular basis, they end up having hip and knee injuries because women aren't built exactly the same like that as men, and they're just not as physical. I mean, their bones aren't as big. They don't have the ability to be as muscular.
But why even have that discussion? Why not just say, here's the standard.
Here's the standard. Meet it or not.
You can't? That's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Thanks for offering yourself. We appreciate you. There are lots of other things you can do that are honorable, and we'd love to have your help.
Right. Right, and you're just talking for regular infantry. I mean, and that then that goes on with where we've tried to make the standards so that women can meet them, like for Rangers and any type of special forces folks. There has to be one standard.
Yeah. And, for me, it's not about, oh, there's a woman who's more skilled or capable than I am. No, that's
No,
not it.
no.
The thing is, there is a standard. Combat is the standard. Can you survive combat? Can you accomplish the mission? Can you take care of your buddies? Are you a net uh, um, contributor, or are you a net impediment to the mission?
Yeah.
If you're not a contributor, thank you for trying. It's okay. Most people would not be a net contributor in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. We've got lots of other places where we need your help. It's okay. Not a big deal.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. I think there are, for women who want to be patriotic and serve their country, there are so many places they fit. I mean, I think women make excellent pilots. Um, they're capable of thinking quickly, and in some cases, have maybe better thought processes. That goes back to, I would say, I believe we're created beings. I believe that our creator made men and women a little different for a purpose. We're wired differently emotionally. We are built different physically, even though we're very similar in many ways. There are some differences. So, and I think
that's not just a male female thing.
That's right.
Different men are built differently.
Sure.
And the preponderance of human males are not built to be in the infantry.
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah, in today's world, I think there are not a lot of people that are even capable of being in the military in general, as far as physical fitness.
Yeah, well,
we've had to lower our standards in order to get people in the military.
Lowering the standards is the wrong answer.
Yeah.
Of course, the right answer is a huge, complex change to our culture that needs to happen.
Right.
But lowering the standards and changing the composition of the military, when frankly the actual standards of surviving combat and accomplishing a mission are not becoming any easier. The actual real standards that devolve from the situation, you can write standards on a piece of paper all day long, and that doesn't make that what actually functions. When we were training troops in the Army, we always had to train them according to task, condition, and standard. The standard and the task never, ever change. You have to execute a raid on this location. You have to destroy this piece of equipment. You have to do it with this percentage of casualties, and you have to do it in this time frame. Those things never change. The conditions change. Mm-hmm. One day it's on a piece of level ground. The installation you have to raid. It's on level ground that's easily accessible on a nice, clear, bright, sunny day. Mm-hmm. And frankly, the guys who are guarding it are asleep. So that's the conditions. But the task and standard don't change. And then when you're actually trying to graduate from training, you have to hump up a mountain in the rain, in the dark, find the place, execute the mission, and extract with your wounded and your, whatever intel you've gathered. Mm-hmm. And you have to be able to do all that in the dark, in the rain, while you're freezing to death. And, but the task and the condition are the same. Execute the raid to these standards.
Right.
Changes is the conditions. Task and the standard never change. Conditions can change in 5 minutes. You never know.
Right. So, I agree with you. It is nice seeing people speak truth and stick to the point. No, song and dance kind of conversations. And, basically, I don't care if you are a politician, a senator, whatever you are, you put your pants on the same way I do. I'm going to speak what I feel, and that's that. And the number of those senators who just were so rude and just talked, they would ask a question and then they would go to answer and they just talk over top of them. And do you really care what they have to say, or do you have an agenda?
Right. And of course, they're politicians. Of course, they have an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
so they of course went off on Hegseth's. He's been married 3 times. Apparently, he's admitted to actually engaging in adultery.
Mhm.
And then what's her name? Hanomo from Hawaii,
Mm.
who of course was a helicopter pilot, a gunship pilot, was wounded pretty badly. She was going off on this, having being drunk at work. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, it's completely unacceptable for a member of the military to be drunk at work or any other of a large number of professions. Now, I understand that when you're working at a news agency and your job is to sit in front of a camera and read a bunch of news, that maybe it's okay if you have a beer or two. But of course, the idea of being drunk, losing control of yourself is never acceptable when you're trying to work. But the thing is, she just kept pounding on it. And he gave an appropriate response. He said, I'm going to do the job. The job is more important than anything else. And, he has never, as far as I know, he's never said, I don't drink. He has said that, I didn't go to work drunk or whatever like that. But the real issue here is that these people have no problem with half of Congress showing up for work drunk. But this one guy they've decided they don't want to hire or don't want to allow the president to hire, all of a sudden that's an issue for them. These people who are engaged with Jeffrey Epstein and all sorts of other hedonistic weirdness. The guy has been married 3 times, and he has apparently admitted to adultery with his first 2 wives. But I'm not saying that's okay. What I'm saying is the hypocrisy of these particular people making an issue of that
Mhm.
is stunning. It's
Yeah.
just stunning.
Well, the one thing about Hegseth is he's made mistakes, but haven't we all? We all make mistakes. But the thing about him is he's owned them. He owns his mistakes, and he stands up and says, "Yes, I did that."
Yep.
But yeah, you're right about that. It was very telling, and I heard someone that was talking about the confirmation, and they mentioned exactly what you just said. They're like, well, everyone who knows anything about the folks in Washington knows that Nancy Pelosi has a nice liquor stash, and people go there and. Because I mean, how many times have you heard politicians right on the camera with some flurry speech? You know?
Yeah. All right. So in addition to that, I believe it's Gabbard's, RFK Jr.'s, and Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., and Kristi Noem's confirmation hearings have been delayed. And there doesn't seem to really be a good reason. They're saying that there's some paperwork, background investigations that are not done. I've actually been party to a number of background investigations. And these are people who are already in the public eye. These are people who have already been investigated and, have had people looking into their past and have been before the media. So what I'm getting at is that there really isn't any excuse to not have their initial background investigations done. That makes no sense whatsoever. And I frankly believe that it's an intentional stalling tactic.
Yeah, it's a
And I
delay
say that
tactic.
because I've seen stuff like this happen. Well, if we play it this way, that'll throw a monkey wrench in the bad guys' plans. Bad guys from the perspective of the senators who are playing silly games with Mr. Trump. Bad guys, any nominee that he's got. And I'm convinced after watching the hearings and then hearing that these 3 were delayed, at least these 3. Of course, if they're delayed, then the ones coming after them will also be delayed as a result of that. All I can think is they're fighting a delaying action, which is a standard military concept. They're fighting a delaying action to get themselves into position so that something else can happen. And then I start thinking, being a military planner, I start thinking, what is that something else that they think might happen? Do they think that they're going to overturn the election? I don't know, but it's interesting that they are fighting this delaying action. They're obviously, I mean, best case scenario, they're just trying to throw a monkey wrench in and throw off the Trump administration's stride. Just trying to throw off their timing. But there was where is it?
I mean, I see that they're saying in regards to Tulsi Gabbard, they're saying that they don't have an FBI background check or ethics disclosures from the Office of Government Ethics.
Right.
I mean, seriously?
Right. That's what I'm referring to. That's madness.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he just mentioned yesterday that he was going to nominate her. So there's a story out, first of all, about federal employees who intend to resist Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as we can tell, it's nearly half of current federal employees want to resist his agenda. So delaying tactics in the Senate, resistance in the professional, what we call the deep state, the professional service corps in the government. And in addition to that, we had the outgoing national security advisor. I can't find the story right now. I'm sorry. Maybe you can look it up real quick, Todd, once I give you a couple of details. The outgoing national security advisor made a comment. He went up to a press conference and he said, well, this is the last time I'm going to come out here and do a press conference, unless, of course, something really bad happens, which, as we all know, it could between now and January 20th. That's sometime in the next 5 days. Did you find it?
No.
I'm sorry. I thought I had it up, but I obviously don't, and I apologize
Who,
to everybody.
Who was it in was it in specific reference to Tulsi or?
No. The national security advisor comes out and says, I'm here, for my last official press conference, unless, of course, something really bad happens in the next 5 days, in which case I'll have to come back out as the national security advisor and address that issue in a press conference. And as we all know, it's very likely that something really bad could happen in the next 5 days. Did you find it?
I'm looking. John Kirby?
No, the national security advisor. Man, I am sorry. I thought I had this one up.
Jake Sullivan.
Yeah, Jake Sullivan. Today's press conference, the national security advisor got up and made the comment that it was his last press conference unless something really bad, which we all know is very likely to happen, unless something very bad happens between now and January 20th. Oh, man.
Well, it's okay. You go on talk and I'll look here. Was he with Jean-Pierre doing the conference?
Not as far as I know.
Okay.
Anyway, I hope you can find it because I am going off memory. But think about what that implies. This guy's the national security advisor. He is the guy who has direct contact with the current president about all national security matters. He has access to all intel. He has access to all operational information. And he stands up. This is a man whose job it is to say, we have a strong hand here. We know what we're doing, and we will ensure that everything goes the way it's supposed to go. And he stands up and says, Gee golly willikers, I sure hope nothing naughty happens between now and January 20th so that I have to come back out here and talk to you people again. So, as a national security guy, what I would expect from my national security advisor is that he come out and say, "Hey, it's great to be here for my last official press conference. Thank you guys for putting up with me the last 4 years. It's been a real honor to serve. Let's go ahead and talk about what we need to talk about." But instead, he makes a point of saying, "This is my last press conference unless something really bad happens between now and January 20th. What is he talking about? What is it he's got on his mind that he thinks might happen? Now, I want to give the guy the benefit of the doubt. I wish people would give me the benefit of the doubt sometimes when I make jokes. Perhaps he was making a joke. But that's not the sort of joke that a professional of this stature in a position of leadership with the most powerful nation on the planet makes 5 days before a presidential inauguration. I hope y'all understand that. It's not that some guy on the street said, "Man, I hope nothing bad happens between now and January 20th. This is the national security advisor. All right. I love making goofy jokes. I am the dad joke king, but there are times when it's just not appropriate. And in moments when I, as a national security professional, might end up giving the wrong impression to the people I'm briefing, which includes the media or the public, I don't say those things. I was once interviewed by Univision in New Orleans because I happen to speak Spanish, and this was during the 2008 hurricane down there that was about to hit New Orleans. And of course, this was our first hurricane in New Orleans after Katrina, so it was a pretty big deal. And Univision was there, and they kept asking me over and over and over again, "So you're here with the military, and what is the Army going to do? What is your mission here?" And I would say, well, our job is to support the civil authorities, to do all we can to help them in any way that we can to accomplish their mission under their guidance, under their supervision, because they are in charge, the civil authorities, not the military. The military is simply here to provide resources, some structure, and support in any way we can, manpower, whatever. And there are certain kinds of manpower that we're not authorized to do. And this guy kept trying to maneuver me. Of course, this is all taking place in Spanish. He's trying to maneuver me into a position where I'll say that we're going to take over New Orleans and establish martial law. And so it got to the point where every single question he asked, my response was, "We are here to support the civil authorities. We're here to support the civil authorities." And he literally looks at his cameraman and says, "Well, I guess the guy doesn't really speak Spanish." And he turned around and walked away, which was pretty funny because he couldn't get me to respond in the way he wanted me to. My point is that I've been in positions like this. There were all kinds of jokes running through my head. There were all kinds of things I wanted to say. And that if it had been me and Todd standing out on the street in New Orleans, I would have said them all because I think I'm funny. But that was not the moment to say those things. The moment, what I needed to say at that moment was the truth about our operational presence, which was we are here to support the civil authorities, the state government, the parish government, the city government, their police, their medical people, whatever we can do to support them. That's what we're here to do. We are not here to be in charge of anything. When you're doing emergency operations within the United States, it is illegal for the military to take over. And there are good reasons for that. All right, Todd, what'd you find? Nothing?
Well, I mean, there's a video here on YouTube from 2 days ago. I think that's the most recent he's done anything. And it is Karine Jean-Pierre comes on first. And then he's talking about Gaza ceasefire deal and the California wildfire.
Okay, well, don't waste too much time on it. I'm sure our friends at home will be able to look it up on their own. And if they figure out that I'm misquoting the guy, they can send me a nasty gram. Why don't you, being the tech guy, tell everybody how they send nasty grams to us? How do our friends get a hold of us and say, "Hey, I was watching your show and you said something stupid," or "I was watching your show and I was wondering about this"? How do folks get a hold of us?
So right now we have and this may change as GCD is changing some of the format of how we do things. and they will have us on various social media platforms. I think in the near future we will have some video clips on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and X. I believe are the four platforms, if I remember correctly. Does that sound right, Marshall?
That's fantastic. Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay.
Actually, Sam and I were talking about, well, actually, he mentioned Rumble, and I don't think I ever got back with him, but you and I have had some experience with Rumble, and if GCD is willing to do Rumble, that's great.
Yeah. Who was it? One of the big podcasters, not Joe Rogan, but shoot, can't think of it right now. Actually was on YouTube as well as Rumble, and he has pulled the plug on YouTube completely because he said, Google's a joke and they're not going to do anything about false advertising and DEI and all this other kind of stuff. Zuckerberg says he's changing that at Facebook, but only time will tell about that.
All right. So his excuse is they called him and yelled at him, and until he did what they told him to do.
Poor
And all
guy.
that means to me is he's compromised. Even if
Sure.
it wasn't his idea, he's not the one who came up with the idea of muzzling people who are simply speaking their minds. Then he can still be intimidated into it. And frankly, the fact that he's all of a sudden changed his position on muzzling American citizens simply means that now he's afraid of the new administration. And
Yeah.
I'd much rather the guy just have a little bit of courage and stand up for what he believes is right. And if he believes that it's right to muzzle people, he should stand by that. Now, I think he's wrong,
Yep.
but I think that a man with integrity will simply say, "This is what I believe and why," and do it.
That's right. That's right. And if you are for having fact checkers on your social media platform, more power to you. But as adults, I think part of the problem is we've made things like, smartphones are making people less smart, because we don't do much. Critical thinking skills are like out the window now.
Yes.
So if someone has a fact checkers on, we don't need fact checkers. If I hear Marshall Wilson saying something online, I'm going to say, okay, did he really say that? First off, okay, this is really him. And so then I may go look and say, well, is Marshall drunk tonight? Does he really believe what he was
Not
saying?
tonight.
Yeah, does he really believe what
No.
he was saying? Oh, let's go back and look at some previous clips of Marshall from 5 years ago where he was saying the same thing. Okay, then he probably believes that, but people just want everything spoon fed to them. And, learn to do some research and have some critical thinking and come to your own conclusion.
Right.
We don't need fact checkers on social media.
And even, I mean, as part of that, you were talking about determining the veracity of the report that someone said or did something, but you got to go along with that, and you got to figure out whether what they said is true or not.
Sure.
The idea of simply surrendering everything to an appeal to authority. Well, this guy is the high mumpty mump of who's it, what's it's, and so therefore I entrust him with my life, dude. No,
Right.
no.
Just trust the science, Marshall.
Yeah, no. Your life is yours. You are responsible for your life. You must make good decisions. And having information that's available, that's provided by people who spend their entire lives studying a particular topic, that's great. I will take that information and I will make a decision about it. But I'm not letting anybody make my decisions for me.
Mm-hmm.
My life.
Yeah, we don't need the ministry of truth.
No, many true. No, we certainly don't.
But that's yeah, definitely. It sounds very 1984 to me.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I
But
am. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say, while I'm still thinking about it, the original question you asked me was how people could contact us to be able to have comments and stuff. So, and I had said for right now, we do have an X account, and it is called Taproot_actual, just ACTUAL, and you can find that there if you have an X account, previously known as Twitter, kind of like Prince and the Revolution. Uh, yeah, go on X. If you don't have an account already, go on there and create one. It's as simple as putting in your email address and a name to go with it. And I I do not know, and it really doesn't matter how I feel about Elon Musk. I mean, he could be a rogue agent for all I know. All what I do know is the guy's a billionaire, and most billionaires that I've not, well, I guess I haven't met Jim Justice, but uh, you know,
God
uh,
bless.
yeah, you've met him a couple times too.
Oh
Um,
yeah, and very interesting words have passed between us.
yeah, I think you had the Patty special with him for dinner one night or something, right?
He told me one time that if I would sit down, shut up, and do what he told me to do, that he'd make me a hero. And I said, well, you know what? I'm not a hero, but I walked with a few of them. And I want to tell you, you obviously have no idea what the word means. Sit down,
Yeah.
shut up, and do what you're told. Is not how you get to be a hero. And by the way, you don't have the authority to designate someone a hero. And on top of that, I don't ever want to hear the word come out of your big, ugly mouth again.
Hmm.
And then he turned to his assistant, who is now apparently running his office because he's a senator now, and said his assistant is a jagoff, as you heard Mr. Hegseth talking about today. But his assistant says, "Hey, sir, that's Wilson. He's a combat vet, and he has a Bronze Star." And the governor says, "Well, how was I supposed to know that? I didn't know that."
I'm
I was
surprised
like,
he
"You're not
didn't.
supposed."
I'm surprised he didn't say, "Well, what's that mean?"
I said, "You're not supposed to know it. You're just supposed to know that you don't get to tell people what to do. I
Yeah.
don't work for you. You know,
You don't
that's
get to
all that
choose.
matters. The rest of that is not the relevant point."
Yep. Yeah. So yes, x.com, Taproot Actual, because the name of our podcast is Taproot, and that was already taken. So we are the actual Taproot.
Yes, we are.
So get on there and log into your X account or create an X account. Look up Taproot Actual. Follow us. Get on, and I'm going to try to be um, making a post on X for now as to when we release new podcast episodes, and you can find those
Awesome.
by date and just go and make comments or whatever criticisms, whatever. Just share your thoughts with us.
So, according to what Sam told us when we first came on, we have another hour of the show left for tonight. Is that the way that goes?
Yeah, I think he said because we were on talking until about 8:15. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, nobody wants to listen to me talk anymore. So, basically, what I wanted to talk about tonight was my excitement about, and I don't get excited. I'm a combat vet, been through a lot. I just kind of watch things happen, and somebody says, "Yay, this is happening. It's going to be wonderful." I just kind of sit there and go, "Yeah, we'll see."
hmm
It's really encouraging to see these nominees just simply walk up and say, "Look, I'm a normal human being. I have some experience, some education, some training, and some capabilities that will make me capable, that will make me effective in this job. And here is my intent, and I will stand by that intent no matter how hard it is." That is encouraging. That is really encouraging. Now, I sincerely hope that it happens, but what's really encouraging is not only do you see individual nominees doing this, you're seeing it as a pattern across the board with these nominees. But more importantly, you're seeing the senior leadership of this organization providing an umbrella cover, a covering to absorb the the slings and arrows that will come at these people as they do their jobs, which indicates to me that it's a much more sustainable proposition. It's not like you've got some rogue guy standing up and saying, "I'm going to fight for a great Department of Defense," or "I'm going to fight for a great DOJ." What you have is these people standing up and saying these things, and you're seeing the picture that this is actually the intent of the entire administration. Fascinating, absolutely stunning, and very encouraging. In addition to that, the fact that they have acknowledged that so many, by the way, there was a gentleman who was fired today. Um, I believe that what's his name? OMG Network used to be he's a you know the name. His name is James O something. But anyway, he actually recorded a guy saying that he was a spy hunter and that they had been talking with some generals and that they had come up with a plan to resist Trump's administration from the inside. And this guy stated that James O'Keefe, that's who it is. Right. Sorry. My apologies. So James O'Keefe wasn't talking to this guy. There was a young lady talking with him, but O'Keefe was filming him. And this guy flat out says, "We have a plan. We are going to resist the incoming president." Well, that's not how this thing's supposed to work. This peaceful transfer of power means that the other guy coming in gets to use his plan, gets to present his principles and his priorities, and actually try to enact them within the executive branch. And they don't have a right. So all of this goes back to Washington. I mean, Wade Wilson, no relation to me. He goes all the way back to Woodrow Wilson, who posited that what the United States needed was not a government of the people, by the people, for the people, but a government of experts and professionals who became professional bureaucrats. And that's all they did their whole lives and didn't know how to do anything else, because then they'd be experts at what they were doing, and that the rest of us should just listen to them and do what we're told. And, he succeeded. He and his ilk, they succeeded in doing that. They're called the progressives, by the way. And even the Republicans have bought into that, and they're part of that concept that what you really need is just the right set of experts to run things. And frankly, what I'm convinced of is we just need a bunch of patriots who have some capabilities and are willing to put them into the hands of the people of the United States, who will then be able to execute their will upon the government. But these guys admitted it. They said flat out, "We are going to resist the will of the elected chief executive of the United States government." It's madness.
Yeah. Man, it's the same with the folks who said, "You think you're going to deport illegal aliens? No, no, we're going to make our city a sanctuary city, and those people can come here, and we're going to hide them from ICE, basically."
Okay, well, then you're breaking the law, and that's
Yeah.
fine. You go right ahead and do that.
Yep.
So those things, you put all those things together, and it looks to me, from my perspective, based on my experience, my education, my training, what it looks like to me is we are literally having a revolution right now. It's been going on for a while. It's just now coming to a head. It almost came to a head in 2016. It almost came to a head in 2020, and I think this time it really is going to. And I think that what's going to happen is we're going to clean out our government. We're going to dismantle a lot of the corrupt institutions, and that we are going to refine our government to actually function according to the Constitution. Quite frankly, my biggest concern is when this has happened in the past, think Rome, then what you end up with is you go from a republic to an empire. And even when the empire fell, you went from a stable empire, it degraded over a vast amount of time, and then of course you end up with these people who come in and they become populist, because all the power lies with the people, and they recognize that, and they come up and they raise the people up to just take over. But the people en masse don't have the vision necessary or the focus on that vision to actually do the job. And I'm just literally talking about 330 million Americans trying to run a country. That's not how it works. You hire managers, a government, to run our business for us, but you've got to hold them accountable. So if what I'm saying actually happens, which means that this administration is actually going to do what they're saying they're going to do, and I see all the indicators to indicate that they will, and I'm very happy to see them. It's very encouraging. That the next thing we have to guard against is that it goes to the point that they dismantle. And look, I want almost all of the government dismantled. Okay, I am a minarchist. The government exists to secure your natural rights and leave you alone. That's all I want them to do, and I want them to do it very well, both the securing my natural rights and the leaving me alone bit. They need to get really good at both of those, and they need to quit trying to do all the others. But the momentum that's built up behind this, which is good, I'm all for the momentum. We just have to guard and make sure that this doesn't become a purely populist movement that actually destroys the institutions rather than refining them. Now, the DEA, the FBI, those guys need to go away. Okay. But what I'm talking about is the institutions that were created by the Constitution or through use of the Constitution for the purpose of securing our natural rights. We don't want those to be swept away and to end up with simply a populist democratic government. And I'm only saying this because it's actually happened before. It's not like something I'm dreaming up. All right. So what we need to execute this thing. We need to execute this intent. We need to execute it effectively in a focused manner and with a strong vision for what that's supposed to look like. And that vision needs to include the end state, which is the reestablishment of the republic. Restore the republic. That's the end state. So I hope that that makes sense to everybody. And I'm not just talking in circles there, but I think that's a very important concern. Todd, thanks for putting up with me, man. It's been a great time talking with you again.
No, so I have a final question for you.
Yes, sir.
And this may take a minute for you to answer, but
Don't they all?
so what do you think about Pat Morrissey?
I don't think we have time for that tonight.
Okay.
I have said repeatedly what I have said repeatedly what I think of Pat Morrissey. My opinion of him has not changed. I know that he put out some executive orders. I read them. The intent of the executive orders is threefold in my estimation, my analysis of it. It's first of all to give the people what they want. So the people who elected him are people who believe in health freedom. They believe in, I hit the nail on the head. Believe in health freedom. They believe in, education freedom. They believe in freedom. And I can say that with some authority because I actually know these people. Yep. I have lived and worked among them for years, and I know who they are. And I believe that's their intent. The problem is they're being taken for a ride. I've actually tried to tell some of the leaders of these movements that that's exactly who he is and what he will do. And the fact is they're seeing the action he took, and they seem to think that that indicates that he's actually fulfilling his promises, when what he's really doing is he is using these issues by giving them a quick response that seems to be very effective, and it seems to be very decisive. And he's establishing himself as the oligarch that I always said that he was. It's really that simple. And I'm actually writing a paper for publication right now, which will lay all of that out. But before I do that, I have to finish and publish the paper that I'm writing about the proposed updates to the House rules, the House of Delegate rules that were proposed by the Speaker of the House, Roger Hanshaw.
Yep.
I've been asked to write a paper for publication on that. As soon as I finish that one, I will switch over to Pat Morrissey's executive orders and why they are not what they seem and why they're actually dangerous. And of course, I realize that most people are going to read what I write and just say, well, this is just sour grapes because you didn't win the election. They can say that all day long. But what I'm doing is I'm presenting solid principles based on historical analysis of the way things work. So thanks for asking, but really don't have time to talk about it right now.
No, I understand.
There's so much more to say.
So I saw your post from Teo and Julie making dinner.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the name of that dish, and I apologize, but I didn't catch the name. And can you please briefly tell me what that name translates to and what is in the dish?
Well, it's patarashka.
Patarashka. Okay.
And I don't know what the direct translation is. I don't know if there is one. I think it's just the name of the dish. But effectively, in the Peruvian Amazon, there are a lot of really good fish. And some of them are huge. But some of them, you can get, standard size fish. There's one called the Dorado, which I am particularly enamored of. And then, of course, there's the Paiche, which is kind of famous if you know anything about the area, because they get really big, huge. I mean, river monster style, right?
Yeah.
But I actually prefer the meat of the Dorado. And what they'll do is they get these leaves called bihao leaves, huge green, sort of waxy leaves. You've
Yeah.
probably seen them before in your marketplace and your grocery store, usually in like the foreign foods aisle or the Mexican food aisle or whatever. But
Okay.
but anyway, and most people think they're banana leaves, but they're really not. They're called bihao leaves,
Hmm.
bijao, bihao. And what you
Okay.
do is you take that fish, you gut it, you scrape the scales off, you lay it on that bihao leaf, you put various peppers and onions and garlic and all kinds of seasoning, salt and pepper all over. You rub it in real good, and then you wrap it up in those leaves, and then you throw it on the grill, what they call down there the parrilla, and you grill it.
Aria.
And it is absolutely my favorite dish that I ate in Peru. Of course, I ate a lot of stuff in Peru, but that was my absolute favorite. And Teo knows this because I lived down there for years. And then the other thing, so we were not able to find here in West Virginia a nice fresh fish. So what we ended up doing was buying a big old slab of salmon, and she used that. And she said, this isn't going to taste the same. This is going to be the American style patarasca, and that's why I called it a la americano, or
Right.
maybe just yeah. But so we used an American fish. Yeah, I called it patarasca con tacacho al americano. Tacacho is, you know what plantains are?
Yes.
Okay, so they look like bananas, and
Right.
they are. Bananas and plantains are from the same family.
Hmm.
But plantains, actually, you eat more like you have to cook them. You
Right.
eat
Because
them
they're
more like potatoes.
kind of tough if you don't cook them.
Yeah, yeah. So they're bananas that you have to cook
Hmm.
effectively. And so anyway,
And it's pretty kind of common to like, don't they deep fry plantains a lot of times?
any way that you can use a potato, you can use a plantain.
Okay.
So, and we ate them in stews. We ate them as a side dish. We ate them boiled and fried, and But tacacho, which is those balls on the side of the fish there in that picture,
Uh huh.
um, I don't really know what they do, but they cook it. I think maybe they fry it. No, it can't be because it's not crispy.
Do they
Anyway,
take
they cook the plantain, then they mash it up. Maybe they
ma-
boil it or roast it.
mash it? Yeah.
Then they mash it up into a mash. Then they make a ball out of it, usually with lard, and then they cook it like that.
Okay.
Now, these were not made with lard simply because we didn't have any lard handy. But
Right.
I did go out and buy some what do they call them? Pork skins with lard still attached, chicharrones, but they weren't cooked anyway. So we're gonna make some lard and give it another go with the tacacho. But
That's
this
awesome.
this is a meal that I ate while traveling around in the jungle. It was the sort of thing I could kind of find anytime I got to a village. There would be somebody who was making patarasca with tacacho. And I don't know if we have another minute or two, but kind of a funny story. Languages are weird, and we all we have to learn our native language, and then you learn a new language, and it fits in kind of a different slot in your head. But anyway, I went to this restaurant in Iquitos, Peru, called the Yellow Rose of Texas, which is owned by a Texan Cajun named Gerald Mayu, deep in the Amazon jungle, in a building that was built by Gustav Eiffel in the Amazon jungle in this town of Iquitos during the
Wow.
rubber boom, before synthetic rubber was developed. And this guy Gerald Mayu is a crazy old Cajun from East Texas, lovely guy to death.
So
And
funny.
so I had not been to his restaurant in a while because I've been back in the States, but I stopped by and they had a new waitress who I didn't know. And I told her that I wanted lo normal, my regular, what I always get. And of course, I didn't realize that, I didn't realize she was new. I was kind of talking to my kids, and I said, lo normal, and she goes, oh, well, what's that? And I said, oh, well, patarasca con camarote. And she kind of looks at me. She says, I'm sorry, what is it you want? And I said, patarasca con camarote. And she sort of
Camarote.
looks around and she says, sir, this is a restaurant, not a hotel. I said, right. That's why I want patarasca, this fish dish. But I wasn't ordering it with tacacho. I was ordering it with camarote. And she goes and gets the senior waitress named Milka, and Milka is a friend of mine, an old friend. She walks in, oh, Senor Marcial, how's it going? You know, had a nice talk. And I said, look, I just want lo normal. And she looks at the other lady and she says, patarashka con camote, como normal. It's what he always orders. That's what he wants. And so she says, well, he said he wanted, and I said, patarashka con camarote. Well, camote is sweet potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
Camarote is bunk beds.
Yeah. It's
So,
like I couldn't tell you how many stories you've told me since we've been friends of
yeah.
words that are so similar but have totally different meaning.
Yeah, the young lady who got up in front of the church and told them that they're Peruvian pastor, she said, estoy bien embarazada y es la culpa del pastor. What she meant to say was that the pastor had embarrassed her, and what she said instead was the pastor had impregnated her. So that
Yep.
was, I'm very pregnant and it's the pastor's fault. And that, of course,
Uh-huh.
scandalized everyone, but the pastor was able to explain it to everybody. It was pretty fun.
I'm
Yeah.
sure. And people probably were sitting there with looks of shock on their face for a little bit.
And then there was the time that I was teaching a class on the character and nature of God, and I said, Nuestro Dios es bien gracioso, which of course I meant to say our God is very gracious, but the word gracioso in Spanish is not gracious in English. It means funny, like
it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Our God is
Anyway,
funny.
I've taken up way too much of your time with my personal reminiscences.
Yeah.
Reminiscences.
Yeah.
I can't speak English anymore now. But
I just looked up the Yellow Rose of Texas and I'm reading some of the reviews on there. It's really awesome. So this person says, I ordered beer, palm salad, chicken soup, and the main dish, Dorado steamed in a banana leaf.
Dorado. There you go.
Dorado. The presentation and the flavor were better than
Is that what you
expected.
said?
Yes.
Yeah.
The waiter speaks perfect English and knows how to treat customers very well. This is a highly recommended place.
Absolutely. One of these days I'm gonna have to take you down there, Todd. You'll enjoy it.
That would be great.
All right. Thanks for putting up with me, man. Thanks
Okay.
to GCD and thanks to our friends out there who are listening.
Yep. And you folks who are listening, please continue, if you feel so inclined, to pray for our friend Paul and
Yes.
And his family. Paul is part of GCD Network. He had an accident, and he needs your prayers, and his family needs your prayers too. And he's a big part of our success, and we're very thankful for him, and we're pulling for him to fully recover. Thank you, folks, and
Take
we'll
care.
catch you again soon.